Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Ripples of Life. I am Danielle, your host on my channel Hope Arising, because hope will arise. And this is my guest tonight, Zach Rehl. You may know Zach, you may have heard of him. He was at the Capitol on January 6th and was arrested and spent a few years in prison for what happened on January 6th. So, Zach, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Sure, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get started with where are you from? Where were you born? Tell me about your family growing up.
Pretty typical family growing up, honestly. I born and raised in Philadelphia my whole life. Lived in Philly. Lived in Philly pretty much every year of my life except for about 4 years. I was 4 years in the military, and I spent another year out in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania in college. And then I moved back to Philly, and I've been here ever since. So besides when I was in prison and I was getting bounced around all over the East Coast, whatever. But yeah, other than that, I lived in Philadelphia my whole life, and just, like I said, just a regular family. Just the son of a police officer. My parents divorced when I was young, but still had a decent childhood growing up for the most part. I went to high school in Philadelphia. Got out, got a job after high school, and continued on in sales jobs, and then I ended up joining the military. After the military, went to college for a few years, got 2 degrees, and then pretty much just got working when I got into working after that, and then COVID happened, and obviously January 6th came around, and it wasn't even the first protest I was at, but that's where my last 4 years were at, basically dealing with that. So
right. So where did you go to college? What did you study?
I went to Temple University. Well, first, like I said, I went to Shippensburg, but then I transferred to Temple University. I got a marketing degree, master's in marketing, and then I went back for my master's degree in innovation management and entrepreneurship, which is basically engineering management and entrepreneurship. So it's a pretty good degree. Learned a lot. It's a good school. Temple's a good school, one of the top schools in the country, at least. So I had a good time in there. That's where I started getting involved a little bit in politics when I was in college. And part of the reason was basically I was in marketing. So I played around with social media a lot, and I had pages I ran, and one of them was a political page I was involved with friends with. It was mostly just for fun, but we wanted to make the page grow more. And one of the things was Facebook was basically rolling out this new live thing where they wanted you to do live videos. And okay, well, we're a politics page, and we like Trump, so what could we do? Looked up on the schedule in Philadelphia, seeing what was going on, seeing if there was some impeachment rally going on in the center city of Philadelphia, and it was like July, like 5 months after Trump was inaugurated. It was already an impeachment march, so I was like, all right, well, I figured I'm gonna have a counter protest to this, because I think it's ridiculous to have an impeachment rally already. So, that was my first time involved with politics, and I clashed with Antifa. We clashed with Antifa that day. And there's about 50 of them that showed up with baseball bats and stuff.
Oh wow!
Kind of chased us out of prevent us from having our march. But none of them got through to us. The Philadelphia police are actually really good, and they were able to keep everybody separated. But that was the first one, and I did a few rallies after that. And I got involved with more involved with it. And 2020 was probably the peak. 2020, there's all kinds of protests going on in 2020, whether it was the COVID lockdowns or things going on with the BLM rallies. And I'm missing one. Obviously, there was the election rallies and protests and everything, and just Trump doing his own rallies in between all that, because he went all over the country all the time. So there's a lot to do politically in 2020.
Oh yeah, definitely. But going back to your college, so you went to Shippensburg, you went to Temple, and then it was at Temple that you got interested in politics. Did you take political classes, or how did that end up? Like, you just
it was Temple. And like I said, I didn't really take political classes, but there was classes I took. Like there was actually one or two of them in Shippensburg that I had to take, and one was international politics, and that kind of opened my eyes to a lot of the shenanigans that get played in politics, and it kind of makes you think a little bit, and you're just like, and then you start developing your opinions on politics a little bit more, and
right.
So and then that's ultimately what ended up going to the creating these Facebook pages for politics and everything, and just talking with people over your opinions and whatnot, and that's just helps you get more involved. It's not anything bad; just helps you get it, get more involved with what's going on.
Right.
So, yeah, you do a lot of research. You look into a political candidate, and you feel really strongly about some of maybe their policies that they're trying to put through, and then you have the people commenting on your pages trying to push false narratives about what this person stands for, and then it gets you into a debate, because you want to prove them wrong and they want to prove you wrong, and somebody's going to be proven wrong eventually, so
right.
And it just gets you more deep involved in with it, basically.
Right. Can you also tell us a little bit about your military background? Like, what branch were you in, and why did you decide to join?
Well, I joined something I always wanted to do when I was a kid. I always wanted to join the military. Ultimately, that's not why I joined. It's one of the reasons why I joined. I joined the Marine Corps because two reasons. It was known as the toughest branch, and I wanted to join the branch and have that under my belt, basically. But also because my brother was in the Marine Corps and had friends who were in the Marine Corps too, and they were able to mentally prepare me for what I was going to go through in boot camp and stuff. So that was another reason. But another reason why I ended up joining was also because I was in sales, and at the time I was selling cars at the time at one of the big car dealerships in Philly. And the 2008 financial crisis happened, and then so I had people coming in who had 750 credit scores who were getting denied for cars. Wow. It was crazy, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not gonna be selling cars. Like, I can't go sell mortgages. I mean, like, what do I do? So I was like, oh, I got to start a new career. So I always wanted to join the military. So I guess now's a good time. So I joined the military, and it was a great decision. I'm proud of my service, proud of what I did, and I got out honorably, and I went straight to college, and I had basically 4 solid years of college, and but I also met a lot of the great people in the military. I met friends from all over the country, all backgrounds. I'm still friends with now. Some were there for my trial, testified on my behalf. And that's just that's what the military is all about. Looking out for your brothers and sisters, essentially. So
yeah, absolutely. Were you ever deployed?
No, I wasn't deployed, but I was stationed in Arizona for about 3 years. The rest of the time I was bouncing around for training, different states like North Carolina, things like that. But
nice. Well, thank you for your service.
No, pleasure.
Yeah. So you started getting involved in politics in about 2016, and then what really ramped it up for you? Like, was it 2020? Was it was there anything in particular that really like grabbed a hold of you and made you like enter the political sphere in terms of protests and everything?
I wouldn't say anything really ramped it up for me per se. Like I was going to protests since 2018, so I was pretty experienced at them and understood the dynamics of what protests were all about. And I started to understand that there's no point of really getting like angry at these things or anything like that. It's just like you show up, and no matter what, you're gonna have people mudslinging you while you're at these protests. But the political tensions aren't too high when you go to these things 9 out of 10 times. It's just a very small percentage of times when things hit the fan or whatnot, and it's a very rare thing. It's just when it does happen, the media throws a magnifying glass on it and acts like it's the worst thing that ever happened, when it's not the case at all. Like, protests happen, they go sideways all the time.
Right.
But like, I started going to more of them in 2020, not because of things were high or tensions are high or anything. I mean, that's what the government will make you want to think, but it was just, I was bored. I had nothing to do. Like, I couldn't work because COVID was shut. COVID kept me from working. I couldn't get a job. I tried to open up my own company. I couldn't even file my business license with the state because the state was shut down for like a year, and it was just like, well, what the hell am I going to do? So I show up to protest. I was like, I like politics, so like, let me go meet and greet some friends and network with people, and maybe by the time the state opens back up, I'll be able to open my business up, and I'll have some people I can work with. You know what I mean? But,
right.
But and that was the perfect storm for the government. I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't realize that, but they created this whole thing. They got people bored. They kept them from working. Their only options were to go to protest. And finally, one of the protest things hit the fan, and they got their day. And I'm talking about January 6th. January 6th was never supposed to happen that way. Like, there's no plot or plan to do anything. It was, it was just another protest for me. Like, when we're going through trial, or when we were going through our trial, like, the whole trial was just like, people talking about, basically, like, what are we going down there for? And, some people were just like, oh, it might be Trump's last time speaking ever, and like, for me, it was like, oh, well, yeah, it's another time to see Trump talk, and like, I didn't think there was going to be another protest after that. So went down there for that. That was that. So,
Yeah. So before we get to January 6th, how did you get interested in the Proud Boys?
Through going to these protests, honestly, because I actually started, because when I was doing it for my own Facebook page and promoting it, I started reaching out to local radio stations, so that way I could promote it on there and tell them about the event we got coming up, and just try to garner interest. And there was this one radio show, went on a couple times, and he after, I think, doing the second or third event in Philly, he told me to he said, oh, why don't you reach out to the Proud Boys? They go to protests all the time, and I was just like, I don't know who they are, whatever. So I was going to check them out, sure. But it turned out they actually were at my events already. I just didn't know who they were.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But it wasn't a lot of them. It was just like a few of them. But then after that, I decided to reach out to the local chapter. And, I got in with everybody. And, I actually went in with a friend of mine because I didn't know what to expect. I looked up online, and I seen, half the articles were saying that they're a bunch of white supremacists and all this crap, and then like the other half were like, they're not white supremacists at all. And it was just like, well, let me go to their website. So I go to their website, and they got like pictures of black guys in the pictures on the website, and they're talking about like pro-constitution and just reasonable stuff as like things that they support. and I was like, it's so weird. All right, I guess I'll check them out. But I was like, I'm definitely going to bring a friend with me. So I brought my friend with me, and I didn't know what to expect, honestly. Like, one time I joked that like I half of me like expected them to be sacrificing a cat on a pentagram on the floor or something, And,
right.
So I get there, and it was, like I said, it's basically what I seen on the website. There's Hispanic guys, black guys, Jewish guys, like guys of all backgrounds. Half of them were military vets, and that's what pretty much got me hooked right off the bat, because military people, they get along with each other almost instantly whenever we see each other. So, that's how I pretty much got hooked after meeting these guys, face to face. It's just seeing that they're regular dudes who just like to hang out and drink beers and get out of the house once in a while. That's all. So,
yeah, absolutely. So how did you become involved, like, in the how do I want to say this? The like leadership of the Proud Boys. Like, how did that come about?
Well, it's just through the same route I've been taking prior to even joining the Proud Boys. I was just doing these events. There's a lot of guys who wanted to get involved in these events too. A lot of people like Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So, people wanted to, either protest in support of him or, show up to events and, protect the members or, MAGA crowd that's there, because at the time, a lot of the events that Trump would do, there would be a lot of people who would show up to counter his protests or his rallies. And sometimes they would clash. People, both sides would clash, and it wouldn't turn out too good. Because a lot of times it'd be, old women getting, things thrown at them or assaulted and everything. And nobody wants to see that. So,
right.
the Proud Boys took like a little, I guess you could say a hand in trying to protect themselves, but protect other people from being assaulted by the other side. And, that's why a lot of other people ended up joining. Not me per se. I actually never, I don't even think I ever, I don't even think I ever got into anything crazy. I've been to a couple of events that where fights broke out and stuff. Had to defend myself at least one of them, but 99% of the time I'd never seen anything violent at all.
Right.
So, but it happens sometimes. So
yeah, it does.
yeah. Oh, and how I ended up with the leadership, just doing that, just continuously doing events in my region and everything, and meeting up with other chapters and just doing events. Some of the guys that were in for a while, like I guess you could say like Enrique Terrio, seeing that I was big, highly respected in my area and from doing events. And, we started doing quite a few national events. And he basically just asked me, hey, man, you want to help me out with these, national events so that way we can try and keep the guys in line and, keep them from doing anything stupid or getting in trouble.
Oh, wow.
That's literally, something like the Proud Boys are known for drinking. So, and basically some of these guys would show up to the events and they'd be drinking and, sometimes get a little rowdy and it's just like, let's not get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Calm down, buddy. You have a little too much to drink, that's it, and that's the kind of thing we wanted to prevent. And that's that. Yeah. So that's how I got into the leadership position. With national. Yeah. So.
Okay. So let's move into January 6th. So you guys, were you there in December when, he said like to come back in January? Were you at that rally?
Million MAGA March 2? Yes, I was there. And in the grand scheme of things, literally like nothing happened.
Right.
At the end of the night, one of our members ended up getting stabbed. A couple of them got stabbed, and that was a disaster. But that stabbing was one of the reasons that led to us, big national guys wanted to create what we called the Ministry of Self-Defense, and it was just supposed to be a smaller chapter for people who want to go to national events, but they were basically to listen to national leadership and stay together and stay out of trouble and don't get stabbed by people. And long story short, before that, we did our march through the city. Like we always go through the city and do a march, meet, greet people, shake hands, and let everybody know who we are and that we're there. And then that was that. Like we actually we used to party when we were in DC. We party in at Harry's Bar, I think it was called. And after we did our marches through the city and everything, we'd shut down the street and just have like a huge block party. And that day was so different. We had like 2 streets that were just completely blocked off. It was so awesome. And it was just one big party. But it ended bad because the guy got stabbed and everything. But other than that, like it was a great night. There's no violence happened, no fights with Antifa or anything like that. And the marches were a success and whatnot. And got to meet a lot of good MAGA folks down there. It was awesome.
Yeah, I do remember that evening. I believe it was right out in front of the Marriott that the guy got stabbed, right?
Right around there, yeah. Or maybe it's Harrington Hotel, unless Marriott might be right by there too. But yeah.
Yeah. So you came back on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And
the 5th technically. I came with the day early, but yeah.
Right. Because it would have been insane coming in on the 6th.
Probably impossible to come in on the 6th, honestly.
Pretty much. There were so many people there.
And from my understanding, they actually blocked off a lot of the major highways going into DC because they were trying to stop the flow of people going into the city that day. Who knows why? I don't know why, but they were trying to slow the flow down of people going into the city.
Right.
But, yeah.
So what happened that day? Walk us through it.
January 6th?
Yep.
I almost missed it, the whole thing, to be honest with you, because I went out there and, we were drinking the night before, and we were up all night partying and everything. And I don't even remember when I went to sleep, but I just remember, I think at like 10 o'clock, one of my friends, 10:30 maybe, woke me up. And like, I think I was still drunk from the night before, to be honest with you. And they're like, "Oh, we going to this thing or what?" And I'm like, shoot. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, "Where am I?" And I looked at my watch. I'm like, "All right, yeah. All right, yeah, sure." And we threw our stuff on real quick and loaded the car up and ran out. And then, met down at the Washington Monument where we were just meeting with our little group we were supposed to meet with. But right then and there, like, we were really supposed to meet with the people who are in our MOSD chat group. But once people found out Proud Boys were there, all of a sudden, it grew from like 50 people to 200, and like half of them weren't even Proud Boys or anything. So they wanted to know what we were doing, and we're like, "Oh, we're just going to march around the city like we did last time we were here," and we marched around the city, and we're actually getting ready to go home, because midway on our march, we found out that Trump was shutting down his event, and he told everybody to meet him at the Capitol, and we're just like, well, interesting. Okay, so we're a few blocks away from the Capitol, so we decided we were going to go head over there and meet him over there, because we heard the big crowd was starting to leave the ellipse and head to the Capitol building. So we're like, all right, cool. Let's go from there. See what happens. It's over there. So none of our plans had anything to do with the Capitol. I mean, initially we briefly talked about the Capitol, because there was actually a lot of stages that were going to be set up at the Capitol. Trump wasn't supposed to speak on January 6th at all, but there was supposed to be a lot of protests set up at the Capitol. And the moment all the speaking slots were announced at the Capitol, Trump announced a couple hours later that he was going to give a speech at the Ellipse instead. So everybody who had any plans of doing speeches at the Capitol canceled all their plans and moved all their speeches over to the Ellipse. And we never talked about the Capitol again after that. And that's the reason why, because we didn't think there's anything going on at the Capitol, so we didn't care.
Right.
But so then, like I said, we didn't say anything about the Capitol until we heard Trump was going to the Capitol, and that's when we decided we were going to go to the Capitol too. So
you heard that he was going to the Capitol. So then you walked up after everything had basically taken place at the Capitol, like the initial breach and everything. I'm asking.
I want to say, well, we were there in the beginning, early. We didn't do the breach, but we saw the breach happen. We collided with this big crowd, and part of the crowd that was there was being led by Ray Epps. Ray Epps led this giant crowd right to the bike racks that were blocking the walkway to the inauguration stage. And I didn't know who Ray Epps was at the time. Other people did. They heard that he was yelling at people the night before, telling them that they got to go to the Capitol the next day. And apparently he was doing the same thing on the way to the Capitol that day too. But I wasn't with that crowd at all, so I didn't witness it, but I seen videos about it. So when we eventually collided with this crowd, they were a little bit rowdy, and it was probably because Ray Epps was amping everybody up. But they're shaking the bike racks and telling the cops to, that they have a right to be on the Capitol grounds. It's the Capitol grounds, and we're Americans. We have a right to be on those grounds.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't asking to go in the building at the time, but they wanted to go on the Capitol grounds. That's all. Trump just got done telling them, "Hey, I'm going to go give a speech at the Capitol. I'll meet you there." So everyone's seen this big inauguration stage, and people wanted to get to it. If you ever been to a Trump rally before, you know how people get. They want to get in the front, they want to be right up in front of the stage, and they want to get close to Trump, so it hopes that Trump will throw him a coin or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's cool.
It's like a concert.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a concert, and it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that because I actually used to go to this concert EDC all the time, and the one year we got VIP tickets, and there was bike racks that was blocking off the VIP section, and I think VIP didn't open until like 2:00 or 3:00 p.m. or something like that, and all the fans were at these bike racks, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes prior to the VIP section actually opening, and they were shaking the bike racks and picking them up and saying, let us in, saying the same damn thing I seen on January 6th with those bike racks. And when I seen that happen on January 6th, I thought of EDC, and I seen this happen. People wanted to get into the VIP section. You know what I mean? Nobody called that an insurrection. It was just a bunch of rowdy fans trying to get into the VIP section. So what I thought was like, oh, this is a bunch of rowdy fans trying to get to the inauguration stage to hear Trump speak. But I actually took video of that happening. Like I had literally nothing to do with it, but they still said that they still blame me and my co-defendants anyway. It's just like, how do I have anything to do with them? Literally on video, taking videos of somebody else pushing these bike racks around,
Right.
It just shows you the bogusness of our trial and the accusations against us. So
on January 6th, then so you saw the breach and everything, and then what happened after that?
Well, a lot of people ran to the inauguration stage. Well, most people ran to the inauguration stage. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I just seen everybody's running, and I'm literally playing on my phone and just walking. I was literally actually recording stuff, and I was checking to make sure my video actually saved, because sometimes that would happen on my phone. I'd go to record it and I'd exit out of it and the video would be gone. So I was like, making sure that was there. I was like, all right, cool, it's still there. And I just continued walking and seeing some of my friends, and we walked up to the inauguration stage area, and there was a certain area or certain line that police wouldn't let us pass. It was like this little area on the sides of the inauguration is like this oval thing, but there's like 2 stairwells that go up on each side. They don't want us anywhere near the stairwells, which is understandable because you go up the stairwells, then you end up at you're actually at the doors of the Capitol and stuff.
Right.
So they didn't want us up there, and people respected that. We all stood there for a good 20, 25 minutes. I remember just standing around. I was like in the middle of the crowd, just hanging out with people. And then out of the blue, they just started launching pepper balls at us and spraying everybody with mace. And I don't know who gave the order or what the purpose of this order was, but they basically just wanted to all of a sudden move the crowd back by like 30 feet. Right. And at this point, like I said, we were just sitting there for 20, 30 minutes already. So there's thousands of people that amassed. Like, you ever been to a concert and tried moving a crowd back? You can't move it.
Right.
You can't move the crowd, but that's what they were trying to do. When people weren't moving quick enough, that's when they started launching pepper balls. So I got hit in the head with a pepper ball. I got maced. And I wasn't in the front line either. I was literally in the middle of the crowd, and I was getting hit with this stuff.
Right.
Didn't do anything. But that's how things started getting out of hand. It wasn't the protesters. It was literally senior management or somebody higher up in the at the Capitol who were given shoddy orders to enrage the crowd, and they're successful at it. So but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So after that, what happened? Like, how did the day progress for you?
Well, I lost my friends for a little bit, so I went to go looking for them at one point, because like when they started spraying everybody with mace, like with some garden hose looking thing, like they had this huge canister of mace, and it literally looked like they were spraying a garden hose. And I took off and ran deep into the crowd because I don't know if you've ever been sprayed with mace before, but that stuff sucks.
No,
So,
I haven't.
yeah, well, it does suck. But I took off, and then I lost my friends at that point. So I lingered around in the back looking for them, and finally, after about a half hour or something like that, I finally found them, and I just kind of just continued to hang into the crowd until we seen a stairwell off to the side, not the same stairwell as I was mentioning before, but it looked like another stairwell opened up that was leading to the other side of the Capitol. And it was these huge crowds that were walking up that direction. And I said to my friends, I was like, hey, it's kind of boring over here. You guys want to go check out over there, see where everybody's headed, And they're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, all right, cool. So we leave the area, and like immediately after we leave that area, we go up the steps, and I think at this point it's like 3:30 or it's about 2:40, 2:45, something like that. And we get up to this area, and we just see all these people inside the building. We see them running through the windows, put flags up in the windows and everything. And there's this door that's wide open, and people are just pouring in. And we see this huge line of cops off to the side of the building. They're not doing anything. They're just not letting people through this walkway along the front of the Capitol, but they're letting everybody go into the building. Like, not a single cop was telling anybody at all that they could not go in that building. And word on the ground at the time was that they were letting people in. And, we walked around, and we just seen people going in and out, having a good old time. It was like, yeah, everybody's getting pictures. And so I ended up asking the friends I'm with, and this ended up being on video, part of our trial. But I was like, hey, you guys want to go in? Never been to the Capitol before, so this might be the last time for some of us to ever see the Capitol. So I mean, they're letting people in. Might as well go check it out, right? And one guy said he was just like, I think it's a bad idea, but I don't want to let you go in there alone, so I'll go in there with you. So I was like, all right, cool. And everybody else was like, yeah, let's go in, let's check it out. So we went in with like 5 people. We went in, walked around. There's this, I think it's called the crypt. There's like a bunch of statues or something, and like a bunch of little, I want to say, little decorative things that they made to show tourists and stuff when they tour the Capitol. And we're just taking pictures of that stuff. We're literally like tourists in there, just taking pictures and taking selfies and stuff in there. And then basically we end up leaving. But that's about it. I mean, the worst thing I did when I was in there, I stopped into a room. I smoked a cigarette in a room where a bunch of people were smoking cigarettes. But funny thing is, I wasn't charged with that because it's actually technically not against the rules to smoke in there. It's actually, you're actually allowed to smoke in these, in the offices of the senators or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Representative members of Congress, whatever. You can look it up. Yeah. Like it's actually, you can't smoke cigarettes in like the tourist area, but like Congress people are allowed to smoke in their offices. So like, well, it wasn't my office. It was technically like a gray area. Like they smoke in their offices. So like, we technically didn't break the law. So
wow.
That's why we didn't get why I didn't even get in trouble for that.
Well, that's crazy part.
Yeah.
So after January 6th, you go home and everything's kind of good until you get a knock on the door one morning, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I missed seeing all the violent, crazy stuff that you see on TV. Like I was long gone when that tunnel scene happened, whatever. But like, and I'm not gonna say like, look, I told you how it started. You know what I mean? But like how it got violent and stuff like that it's it wasn't all protesters' fault. And let's be clear with that. But I didn't see it. It wasn't even on the Capitol grounds when some of that stuff happened. So like I left around maybe like 3:30. I think it was more like 3:20 to be exact. And I left the Capitol grounds, everything. We walked back. We got drunk again at the hotels and just, whatever. I woke up the next morning. Like I wasn't even watching TV when I went home or went back to the hotel. So like I didn't know what was actually going on over there. I was happy to see friends that I seen from all over the country. That's what I was worried about.
Right.
But so yeah, I wake up the next morning and I find out Congress was basically just crapping on Trump and saying that they're not going to back him no more in his allegations of election fraud, and that they're just going to toss out the whole thing. So I was a little annoyed about that. So I started talking shit on excuse my language, when I started talking trash on social media, just saying, oh, what a bunch of cowards, or blah blah blah. We should have did this or that instead. Just being mad because you wake up in the morning, you find out something terrible happened, and you're just talking trash. But like I said, I at the time, like I said, I didn't even know the extent of what happened the day before. So they end up using some of those comments against me at trials, being like, oh, look at these horrible comments you said. At the same time, when I went on the witness stand, I was like, yeah, but like, so what? Like, it's all those comments I made were after the fact, and they were all shoulda, coulda, woulda comments. Like, they all had one of those three words in there. And like I said on the witness stand, I was like, all that is evidence of things we didn't actually do. So like, you can say you shoulda, coulda, woulda done anything, but that just says that you didn't do it. So I mean, that just shows the absolute ridiculousness and bias of our trial, and the fact that like we're literally proving this to this jury over and over and over and over and over and over again that we didn't do what we're accused of, and yet we're continuously getting blamed for everything that happened that day, and it was just absurd. The fact that we were convicted just shows how horrible every J6er had to, the horribleness of everything that every J6er had to go through during these DC trials. The DC trials were just politically motivated, horrible, unfair, unjust, the whole nine. Anytime a government has a 100% conviction rate, there's obvious misconduct involved and unfairness and bias. So
let's go back to 2021. When did you get arrested? Like, how did that all play out?
Oh yeah. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but So I didn't think when I left that day, I didn't think I was even going to get arrested. I didn't think I did anything to even deserve to go to jail for the weekend. So, but I knew I went in the building, and I ended up hearing it. It was a couple days after January 6th, where Christopher Wray said that, I don't care how long it takes, we're going to hunt down every single person who went into that Capitol and, charge you with fullest extent of law, whatever, something like that. And I was like, oh, great. Well, I went in the building, so I guess I'm eventually going to get arrested for that, because I'm well known in the Philadelphia area, and they know who Antifa knows who I was in DC. So I knew they were going to be hunting me down, trying to, find a picture of me inside the Capitol. I knew it was going to appear, but I still didn't think it was going to be anything that serious. I thought it was going to be like some misdemeanor, something, whatever, maybe disorderly conduct or whatever, whatever. I mean, it was a protest that went sideways. Like, it wasn't the end of the world. But then my first co-defendant ends up getting arrested. He got arrested on January 20th, and he got charged with like 5 felonies. I was like, oh my God. I wasn't near him when we got to the Capitol. When we got to the inauguration stage, we kind of like went our separate ways after a few minutes, and then I didn't see him again. I didn't hang out with him again or anything. So I was just kind of like, I wonder what he did. I was like, I was like, wow, 5 felonies. I was like, that's crazy. But I also didn't know that they were going to start charging everybody with felonies who just happened to walk into the building. But either way, I was like, felonies though? Like, I was like, there's no way. Like, that, like, nobody going into the Capitol is not a felony. That's just crazy. Like, how the hell do they get away with this? And then the second co-defendant gets arrested. He gets, the same thing, bunch of felonies. And I was just like, oh man, it's only a matter of time. I was like, I was just blown away, And then I started seeing these lefties online who were making it a game to hunt down anybody that they could, and my name kept popping up. And they every so often, every few weeks, they would do a campaign where they try and find my name, and it was just like, yeah, I was watching it. Damn right, I was watching it. those, and I knew a picture was going to pop up. We walked around there. Sure enough, it did. And I was like, there it is. There it is. It was me in the office having cigarettes with all these other guys smoking cigarettes. And the FBI actually took a whole week to come arrest me. And yeah. And to make matters worse, the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is a complete liberal rag nowadays. I mean, it used to be considered a conservative paper, but then like radical lefties took over the paper, and they put out a news article complaining that the FBI didn't come arrest me yet, even though evidence has been found for me going into the Capitol. And it was just like, you gotta give me a break. So that made that made the FBI come get me. I think like within 24 hours, they put that news article out. They come and got me the next morning. But yeah, they got March 17th. So dangerous that they waited almost over 2 months, to come get me. So
how did that day happen for you? Like
the arrest day?
Was it early in the morning? Like what happened?
It sucked, to be honest with you, because it was St. Patrick's Day and my boy's birthday the day before. So we were out drinking again, and I probably sound like a raging alcoholic. But the times that I go to these events, and I was hanging out with friends and hanging out with people I haven't seen in a long time. But the night before I got arrested, it was St. Patrick's Day and my friend's birthday, so we were hanging out and getting drunk the night before. So we were up pretty late too, and then so I wake up, man, they come knocking on my door at like 8:00 in the morning, and it was bad. I heard my wife call my name out in distress. It got me out of bed. I jumped out of my bed. Thought I heard her call me, and then I heard somebody yelling my name down there. So I threw my pants on, and I got close to the door. At this point, I'm thinking it's my friends still hanging out at my house, and just playing a prank on me or something. But then and I hear FBI downstairs now, and I'm like, all right, maybe I should walk to the steps and see what's going on down there. I walk to the steps. I look down the steps, and I just see all these AR-15s pointed up the steps, and they just say, "Put your hands in the air." I was like, oh, that FBI. Okay, sure. Just put my hands in the air, and I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I just walked down the steps, and they pat me down. I remember they patted my pants, and they're like, "What's in there?" And I knew it was a pack of cigarettes, and I was just like, nothing I'm going to need anymore. And I was just like, cockily, whatever. So that was the last thing I said to them when I was in the house. They carried me out the door in cuffs, and my wife was sitting there 6 months pregnant. Felt bad for her. She had so much terror on her face at the time, but I just nodded to her like, it's going to be all right. Not knowing that it wasn't going to be all right for 3 years and 10 months.
Right.
But, it was what it was. So I get in the car, and they're asking me if they can go in my car, if they get the keys in my car and go search my car. Otherwise, they'll have to break my window. I was like, I don't do that. I was like, get my keys out. You can get my keys. I don't care. And they take me down to the FBI building in Center City, Philadelphia. And then they asked me if I wanted to talk about what happened on January 6th, and then I was like, and they were like, they handed me this little thing that said, they're like, yeah, if you want to talk about it, you just sign this form here. Basically waives your right to the, your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, whatever. And I was like, oh, no, I want an attorney. And I just handed that back to them, and they're like, okay. And they shut their books, and that was it. They fingerprinted me, took some pictures, and then they took me over to the BOP, FDC Philly, Federal Detention Center Philly, and I got to sit in solitary confinement for about a month, just because COVID. Some reason solitary and quarantine was 30 days in FDC Philly when it was a week everywhere else at the time. We're talking March 21. Like I don't even think they're requiring quarantine anymore, but they were for the BOP and January 6ers who were going to the BOP for whatever reason. So part of their tormenting tactics. So
wow.
Yeah. Wasn't able to call my wife for about 4 days. I was just stuck in this cell for literally they only let you out once every 3 or 4 days for an hour, and that was just to make a phone call and get a shower. So yeah, like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was gonna have bail. I didn't know if it was a bail hearing or whatever. You'd see a guard walk by, you bang on the door and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Do I get a bail here?" Like, what's? And they would just ignore you, and it was frustrating. So I learned the way to actually get these people to talk to you was like they would hand you your food tray 3 times a day. The key was to when they did that was to not actually take the food tray from them, but leave the food tray in the little trap door that there is, because there's a door and then a little trap door where they give you your food tray. So I would refuse the food tray and I would make them answer my questions and everything. But that took a couple days for me to figure out. But and of course getting the anger built up because they're being jerks over and over and over again.
Right. So how was your wife handling all of this at this time?
At this point, she was holding on. She was confident we were going to get bail. I wasn't accused of anything violent. I wasn't charged with any assaults or anything like that. It was just a couple bogus like obstruction, conspiracy. I think it was a couple conspiracy charges, but then there was at the time I actually think I was actually charged with trespassing and disorderly conduct as well. They eventually superseded that indictment and got rid of all of our misdemeanors and left us with like 9 felonies, which is even more ridiculous. But yeah, it was we were confident we were going to get bail. She was working on getting an attorney at the time, and she did get the attorney. The only thing is my bail hearing kept getting delayed at first, so I had to sit in jail for about a week before I actually had my initial hearing on bail. And I was actually granted bail initially. The Pennsylvania magistrate judge, who's not a political hack from D.C., thought the reasoning for the government to deny me bail was so stupid and ridiculous that he actually gave him a dirty look. He's like, "I see what you're trying to do, but no, like, now let me get free." Like, he was literally visibly annoyed at what they were saying about why I should be denied bail. And then I remember the prosecutor. What's that? They were just trying. They're basically saying that, like, oh yeah, well he's a leader, and but they were calling everybody leaders at the time, and it didn't matter if you're the Proud Boys or what. It didn't matter. Everybody was a leader on January 6th. Everybody was the tip of the spear, But they were also saying that there could be another event. There could be another event coming up, and he might, show up to that and do this and that. And it was like, oh, come on. Like, this is a once in a lifetime event that happened in DC. The guy who, would like basically not really organized it, but like the man who gave a speech at it was the president. He wasn't even the president anymore, but they were still getting people denied bail over some crap that was never going to happen. Like, there was no event that was going to pop up that we're all going to show up to. And you know what I mean? Like, it was such BS. So the prosecutor just arrogantly goes, "Oh yeah, all right, Your Honor. All right, I'm going to put in for an emergency stay on his on his bail, and I'm going to put in for a request for what they call a de novo review." And that's where they first transferred my case from the magistrate judge in Pennsylvania to the corrupt communist scumbag Timothy J. Kelly in DC. And I ended up not getting my bail. My bail didn't happen. And a stay means that the decision to release you has been suspended until your case has been reviewed by the judge that this prosecutor wanted us to be, heard in front of. So of course, we end up going in front of Judge Kelly 2-3 months later, something like that, and he just denies it out flat right. Like, no, denied. Your bail's denied. And that's how he always was. Every time we would put motions in, he'd be like, denied. He was such a hateful scumbag, and he took such joy and pleasure in denying our bails that like he would get excited over it. And disgusting individual. They all are down there. I mean, they're a bunch of, like I said, it's communist scumbags down there, and it's a shame. But yeah. Anyway, long story short, he gets it denied and ended up sitting in jail for after I got my freaking bail approved, I ended up sitting in jail instead. Now it's denied. So then after that, they went after my co-defendants because they were actually out on bail too, and they pulled their cases from their magistrate judges and put them in front of Judge Kelly, where he then denied their bails and then pulled them out because they're on home confinement. So home confinement to being incarcerated. So crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at what point did you get moved down to DC then for your trial in DC? Like how long did that take?
I didn't go down there for a while. I was in trial. Let me see. I think we started trial December 14th of 2022. I sat in FDC Philly because I actually fought to stay there because I was 10 minutes from my house. My wife was able to, come visit me, even though like we didn't have contact visits or anything. We had glass in between us, whatever, because of COVID. But it was still at least got to look at her, and see her 10 days, every 10 days. So that was nice. But after that, stayed there about a year and a half. I want to say October of 2022, they started moving us all down to Alexandria. And I ended up having to stop in Northern Neck first. Northern Neck was an absolute crappy place to be. I feel bad for the guys who had to stay there longer than I did. I only stayed there for about 2 weeks, and I was so happy that I was leaving. But it was horrible, and the food was disgusting there. The guards were just drug addicts, and they were just horrible human beings, everybody. But so anyway, I ended up going to Alexandria, and that's where we were put in solitary confinement again while we were there. All 5 of us were there. That was stupid too. We should have never been in solitary there. But they just gave us this poor excuse that your case is a big deal, so we gotta keep you in solitary. I'm like, what about the other J6ers? They're like there's guys here that are have misdemeanors, and you got them in solitary too. I was like, it sounds like you guys are targeting us, not actually trying to keep anybody safe. Like, what? Doesn't even make any sense. I was like, most people. I just spent a year and a half in FDC Philly, and I was around black guys, Hispanic guys, and you name it, and like not a single person gave a crap about the fact that I was here for January 6th. So like, what do you mean you're protecting us? It sounds like you're punishing us. And like, no, we're not doing that. But you can they're like, you can get your case reviewed after a couple of weeks, and we'll see if we could get you out of solitary. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is what you tell us to shut us up, so that way, we get out of your office, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm not stupid. I see right through these people, So, and sure enough, we sat there. I sat there for almost a year in solitary. There was no review. We never got to talk to these people. They never cared or anything to get you in general population. But
right.
But I've one thing though is there was the Lockerbie bomber that got arrested when we were in Alexandria, and he was in general population. He had a higher profile case than we did. He actually murdered 250 people on an airplane by blowing it up. And he was just hanging out general population while we're glorified trespassers, if you can even argue that. We're sitting in solitary confinement because we're so dangerous. But yeah, wow. But after that, we went through our trial while we were in Alexandria. Let's see, we got moved out of Alexandria because after our trial, we didn't know when we were going to move, how long it was going to take, and we started having other J6 supporters and friends call the jail and complain that we're in solitary. We shouldn't be there. Yeah, so they got fed up with it, so they decided that they're going to have like a one-on-one meeting with the 5 of us. And I don't know how the other guys were. They're probably respectful, but I was annoyed and I was pretty ticked off about it. So I gave them all the crap in the world, and I was saying the same stuff I was saying when I was getting put in there in the first place. And I was like, look, these are the reason why you guys should be here. Should have us in here. Like, these are targeting us. You're targeting us for our political beliefs. And I was like, screw you guys. I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody to stop calling. Why would I? Like, I was like, you want this calling to stop? Get us out of here. Get us transferred somewhere else. And the guy was like, by the end of it, he was like, well, I'll see what I can do about getting you guys out of here. But I would appreciate it if you know, you get people to stop calling. I was just like, I was there. I was like, I'll think about it. Whatever. I was
Right.
like, so I get out of there, I leave, and I get locked back in my cell. And the guy that put me in the cell was being a jerk about it. So I was like, you know what? Like, these guys treat us like trash in here. I'm in solitary already. So I got nothing to lose. I got on the phone with one of the people that I was talking to, and I was like, don't stop calling. I was like, screw them. I was like, what can they do to us? We're already in the worst position we could possibly be in. And
Right.
thanks, Madigan, for seeing what you said. You said you're one of those people who call. I appreciate it. I really do. But yeah, like it's a couple days, 2 days later, we're out of there. It was awesome. We got to go to we went to Lewisburg for about 10 days. That was cool. It was the first time we got to go outside and walk in the yard in 2 years. We didn't even get to see sunlight where we were, like because they would keep us inside all the time. And when we traveled to the courthouse, we got loaded up in a garage, and then they would drive us to another garage at the DC courthouse, and then we got unloaded inside that garage. So like we're never actually outside in the sun for a whole incarceration. It was crazy.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then the doctors would give me vitamin D and be like, "There's something wrong. You're really pale. Like, here's some vitamin D." I'm like, "I wonder why." It's because you guys haven't let me out in years.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. But
so when you got moved down to DC or Alexandria, how was it for your wife? Like, she had been pregnant, and she obviously had your child when you were incarcerated. How was that for her? How was that for you?
It was rough for her. It was hard for me at times too. Obviously, like I went from able to see her all the time to not being able to see her much at all. But the one difference with Alexandria, they did have tablets. We did have these little tablets, so I was able to like receive pictures from her. I couldn't send pictures, but she could send pictures. So like she would send pictures of the baby and everything, and herself and everything, and that was cool. Typically, we would receive pictures. We would just get them sent by like free prints or something at the BOP. I don't think they accepted free prints where I was at Alexandria, so we had to get them sent on the tablet. It was expensive, so she couldn't send them all the time. But when I got them, it was nice that she actually sent that stuff. But she came down a couple times to visit during the trial because she was down. She came to see the trial a couple times. We got to have visitation there, so that was cool. That was between glass too. Like that was actually a little worse in Philly because that was like the stuff you see on TV where they have the phone and the glass.
Right.
So like I wasn't able to say anything to my youngest daughter. She tried to keep a 1-year-old on a phone looking at some guy. She don't even know who the heck he is.
Right.
But yeah. As far as there's a question here, can I answer that one?
Yeah, we'll answer that at the end. I haven't started, so we won't forget it.
Right, cool. Just want to be
sure. Yeah, no, I won't forget it. I've started a few things. So what? So trial goes on, and what was the hardest part about trial for you?
The hardest part was literally sitting there, just listening to the government make up literal tinfoil hat conspiracy theories over what they think we did that day, and not having a single shred of evidence of any of their conspiracy theories, and our lawyers filing motion after motion after motion, pointing out, their BS essentially, and the judge just denying every single request. Like there's time after time after time, I thought that, oh, this is it. This case is getting dismissed. Or hey, this is it. This is going to be how we prove that we didn't do anything. And then like the judge would like block us from introducing evidence. The judge would block us from bringing in witnesses. Like we uncovered over 20 confidential human sources during our trial alone, and he only let us bring in one of those guys. And that one guy that they did let us bring in was down there inside the Capitol doing stupid stuff, probably paid by the FBI to do it because he was being paid by the FBI. But
he actually went on the stand and said that there was no plan and that we didn't start anything. Like, he was texting his FBI handler live that day. He was with us, and he texted his FBI handler that day and said, people are going into the Capitol. They're going on the Capitol grounds. The Proud Boys didn't do any of it. Everybody just kind of followed the herd, and that's the terminology he used. Everybody followed the herd, and that's basically everybody. Everybody once people move those bike racks out of the way, everybody just followed everybody down the walkway. It wasn't anything crazy, but we didn't lead that as much as everybody wants to think that we did. We didn't lead that anyway. So, but like I said, we had this CHS on the stand, this informant on the stand. He said that, and like I said, it didn't matter anyway. But we had access to 20 others who were embedded in chats, embedded in groups all around that day, who would have collaborated our story of the fact that we didn't do anything. Because if we did plan anything, I can 100% guarantee you those informants would have been on the witness stand for the government. They would have. But because the government blocked us from getting those people on the stand, that tells you everything you need to know.
Right.
So that was the most frustrating thing for me, because like just being denied the opportunity to put witnesses and evidence on the stand to prove our innocence. It's not how our justice system is supposed to work. You're not supposed to be getting stonewalled from proving your innocence. That's just crazy. Like, it was a complete setup by the government to just frame us for something we didn't do.
Yeah. Right. So what was it like getting sentenced?
It was a little upsetting at first, because I addressed my family at first, and I got emotional addressing them, because I walked in that courtroom and they're crying and everything, and there's a huge crowd of people that showed up for me, and that made me feel special there. I was happy to see a lot of people. Some people I haven't seen for the first time in 3 years. So it's like 3 years. 3 years I was locked up, and I was getting sentenced. But after I was done addressing my family, finished the rest of my my little speech to the judge and everything like that, and just waited to see what he said. And I was already expecting to get railroaded on the time, because Joe Biggs went before me. Me and Joe Biggs were the only ones out of the 5 of us getting sentenced that day. But so I knew I was getting something bad. He got 17 years. I remember he came back down to the little jail cell we were in, and he just kind of like sat down and was just stared. And I was like, "So what's up, man? Like, what'd you get? You got 8, 9 years, 5 years? What?" I got 17 years. I'm like, "What? 17 for what?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know, man. The prosecutor's, he was sitting there comparing comparing January 6th to 9/11 and saying that this is the worst terrorist attack on American soil in U.S. history, and yada, yada, yada." And then the judge turns around and hands down a 17-year sentence. I was like, "Hold up. Worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil in U.S. history? Hold on. I didn't know 3,000 people died at the Capitol that day. Like, that's insanity. Like, as far as I knew, 4 protesters died by the hands of cops. But apparently, according to these prosecutors and the judge, it was, January 6th was the worst thing that happened in U.S. soil and U.S. history." So, like, that's the kind of crap we had to deal with. Prior to that, we had a Capitol police officer come in and blame every suicide that happened in the police force in D.C. in the next 2 years on us. They blame all the suicides that happened in the next 2 years out of all the DC law enforcement on us. And it's crazy, because my dad was a cop. He died by suicide. And I know for a fact that police have a very, very high rate of suicide. And you can't pin that on one event. So to sit here and blame all the suicides that happened in the entire law enforcement in DC on one event, and 5 people, on 5 people, it's disgusting. It's a disgrace, and those cops should be thrown in jail for lying on their oath. And it's disgusting. And the judge should be held. He should be impeached. He should be impeached for allowing such a blatantly false statement to be made in this courtroom. So, But that's why I got sentenced to 15 years. And you had these people just coming in and just making outrageous statements. You know, I can't. When I went in, the prosecutor said similar things about 9/11, and it was insanity. One of the reasons why they kept making references to 9/11 is because a lot of people don't realize this or know this, but after 9/11, with like the Patriot Act and all those things, they used 9/11 to strip a lot of constitutional rights from Americans, so that way they could prosecute people without due process. So, but the only way they can get away with it is by talking about how, you know, it was terrorism, or, you know, comparing it to 9/11, because then the judges in DC give them more leeway, because it's like, oh, okay, well, you're only violating this person's rights because it's a terrorist case. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. You know, and that's actually a real thing. So, and that's why they got away with, well, kind of got away with a lot of things. They're not going to, because we're suing them. But yeah, that's a topic for another day, though.
Right. I didn't know that you guys weren't all in court together when you were sentenced. I don't know why I would have assumed that you were all together when the sentences were handed down that day. No,
it was 3 different days. So me and Joe went day 1, Enrique and Ethan went day 2, and then Dom Pizzola went day 3. So it was all one after another, though. So yeah.
So what happened afterwards? Like, how did you end up going to where you did for the first time? You know, like the institution that you went to, and then got transferred around a lot of times.
Yeah. So when we got sentenced, we were actually at the DC Gulag at the time.
Okay.
We eventually, like I said, we went to Lewisburg for 10 days, and then we went down to DC for a few months, and then well, the 5 of us all left DC randomly in like middle of the night, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and they took us back I went back to FDC Philly. So it was the first time the other guys were there, but I was just like, oh, great, back here. Yeah, so we were there for about 2 months, and then at that point, we all started going back to going to our facilities. For me, luckily, there was a bus going straight from FDC Philly to Petersburg, where that was my final destination. So I had one bus. They didn't put me through any diesel therapy to go to my final destination, but Joe, Ethan, Enrique, Dom, unfortunately, they were all in southern prisons, much farther down south, and they were they had stopped at numerous other facilities to get to their final spot.
Oh, wow.
But the final spot was like a real, once I got there, it was kind of like a kick in the gut for a little bit when I first got there, because it was just like, wow. So I'm here now. I'm sentenced to 15 years, and Trump was, I think, just got done announcing he was running for president, but then like there were all these criminal cases were starting to pile up, and it was like, it wasn't looking good for me right there at that point, because I knew if Trump didn't win, that I'd still be in prison right now. You know, and it was pretty crappy, thinking about that. So, but once the new year started, something clicked in my head, and I just went on a positive kick. Started working out every day, reading books on my free time, and just continuing to stay positive to my family, and kept saying that Trump's going to win, and I'm going home next year. That's it. So, and here I am. Great, thank goodness.
It's incredible. What did you What did you think when you heard about his the attempt on his life? Like, what was the reaction?
That was scary for me, honestly, because you always know that politics can get real nasty. I was kind of telling you a little earlier with the protesting, and a lot of mudslinging going back and forth, and sometimes fights could break out. But when the other side starts to murder their opponents or try to, it gets real scary, So I was kind of sitting there thinking, I was like, wow, like this is beyond just trying to tarnish the man's name. Like now they're trying to kill him, and I obviously didn't. I was scared. I I knew he had a good chance of winning at that point because he survived, but
Right.
I was terrified that they were going to try again and be successful. And then what? Then
Right.
what? You know, they would have killed him, and I'd probably still be in jail because I don't know for a fact if you know, any other Republican would have pardoned us. And honestly, I don't think they would have, to be honest with you. But I think Trump was the only one who would have actually done what he said he was going to do. So.
Right. So, obviously you got out. You were not pardoned though.
Mm-hmm.
Your sentence was commuted. And that created a lot of issues for you.
Yes, it did. I'm extremely grateful to be commuted at the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
President Trump did say that, you know, our cases are under review, and you know he's probably going to give us a full pardon, upgrade at some point. But I don't know what that entails. I don't know how long that time frame is. I'm kind of like living in limbo. It sucks.
Right.
Prior to this, I mentioned I was, you know, opening up a business and everything. I had a bunch of finance licenses that I worked, you know, over a decade to acquire through college and jobs that I worked at. And, you know, 7 professional licenses, they're all null and void right now because of the felonies. If I had the pardon, I'd have them, they'd be reinstated. But because I don't have the pardon, I can't even work in the field that I spent almost 20 years working towards, you know, so it's pretty crappy. But then I also have military benefits that I was receiving from, you know, from the VA for my service in the Marine Corps. And those are still revoked because of the seditious conspiracy conviction. So I can't even get medication from the VA. I can't, you know, I can't get my my pension with the VA either, you know, all because of the seditious conspiracy conviction. So whenever he gets around to doing a pardon on that, or I don't know if I got to get it overturned at the Court of Appeals, or maybe try and get it dismissed somewhere or the other. But right now, I'm pretty much stuck. Like I have just no income. You know, I live in Philadelphia. It's horrible. Right. There's a bunch of radical lefties here. So, you know, it's not like I go work at Walmart and I'd be fired within a week because they'd find out I work there, and they'd have me doxxed online, and they harass Walmart until they get the crazy insurrectionist fired, you know.
Right.
You know. But yeah, I got some things in the works, and I'm trying to get on my feet for. I might be probably going to be doing a little show myself too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But we'll see where that goes. You know, I you know, I'm not sitting on my butt doing nothing. I'm trying to make things work, but you know, it's just hard when you spend so much time, you know, getting educations and licenses for a certain field, and it gets all ripped away from you, and then you can't get back. So it's just kind of like you're starting all over again.
Right.
And you know, it's tough, but I'm going to get there. I know I will. You know, it's just it's going to take some time. That's all. And hopefully the pardon comes in the meantime. I mean, that'd be great.
Right.
So.
I do have your Give Send Go in the comments below on my stream. So if you guys feel led to donate to him, his Give Send Go is in the comments.
I really appreciate it. Anything helps go towards, you know, setting on next business venture or something. So
absolutely. So what is one thing you want people to know about you that, you know, we haven't talked about, or, you know, nobody has asked you about in previous interviews that you've given?
It's a good question. I think it is a good portion of people know a bit about me. For those who don't, I mean, well, for one, we're innocent. We did not commit seditious conspiracy. That was literally a plot by Democrats to try and take down Trump. The reason why we were charged with seditious conspiracy was because they wanted to eventually charge Trump with seditious conspiracy. They chose the seditious conspiracy route because they couldn't charge him with insurrection, because a lot of people forget his second impeachment was inciting an insurrection, and he was acquitted of that. So they started this big bogus plot to go after two of the biggest groups, to and convict us of seditious conspiracy. So that way, when they charged him, they would just tie him to us, and they would easily convict him of it. And they wanted to use the 14th Amendment to rip him off the ballots. And obviously, we've seen them. Right. They were literally doing that during the election season, trying to take him off the ballots. So I'm glad they were unsuccessful with it. The part of the reason why they were unsuccessful with the with charging him with the seditious conspiracy was because he was tying them up in pretrial motions, and that's how we ended up seeing a couple of the cases went to the Supreme Court. Some of the motions he filed in pretrial, I think one of them was the immunity. I forget what the other one was. But yeah, like they simply ran out of time. They wanted to have the trial for him before the election, and they wanted to convict him of seditious conspiracy before the election so they could rip him off the ballot right before the election. And they failed, thank God. But yeah, it never had anything to do about serving us justice. Seditious conspiracy is a bogus charge. Like I said, nothing to do with us committing it. It was just to get him off the ballots.
Right. Right. So we have a few question and then a few comments that I wanted to highlight. Shenanigans said a little while ago, she wanted to let you know that the Patriot Mail Project prays for you.
And I appreciate it. And I loved everything you guys have done for us. Honestly, like some of my hardest days were the days I would just get like an influx of mail in, and a lot of the supporters that wrote us letters and everything really helped uplift me, helped me connect with God a little better. It's just a lot of the people put a lot of Bible verses in there, and made a lot of comparisons to other people and whatnot. And it was it helped tremendously, and I can almost say for sure that it helped a lot of other January 6ers too. So thank you for everything you've done.
And I do know her, and she said that she wrote to you several times as well. So.
Oh, sure. Then I probably know.
Yeah. And then God Rides a Harley asked, did you ever get to talk to people at the Freedom Corner? He knows that they called a lot.
Yes, I did. Not until I got out of FDC Philly though. I think I made my first connection with them when I was in Northern Neck. And then when I got to, I want to say DC, I met all the other J6ers that were frequently calling into the Freedom Corner. That's when I really got to talk to them. Actually, backtrack a little bit. I actually met Mickey. Mickey visited me when I was in Alexandria at one point, a couple times. So, so I probably definitely called in at Alexandria as well. So, yeah, it took me a year and a half, but when I finally got out of Philly and started running into other people, when I actually started discovering myself, Freedom Corner, and all the good people over there. So, yeah, I called in quite a few times. Like I said, when I was in DC though, too, I called in a lot more in DC. So,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He also said that he doesn't have any real questions. He's just happy everybody's back home.
I appreciate it. I'm happy very too. So is my wife and my kids.
And then Shenanigans said, remember, God has your back and you'll get through to the other side. Don't give up hope.
I agree 100%. And that's it's a lot of my strength is just, keeping that positive faith and everything in God and just waiting for the light to appear just so I can walk through it, so it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any other questions for Zach? We definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and answering maybe a few different questions that you haven't answered before, and sharing your life with us.
Yeah.
It's a lot to
do. Good to have a little change it up a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we have Pamela and God Rides a Harley are my mods, and they're great mods, and I really appreciate them being here. And Shenanigans is a good friend of mine as well. And they say, great, thank you for your interview, and thank you for sharing.
And thanks for listening, and thanks for sticking around. I see a few of you have been here since the whole time. So
Yep.
Appreciate you sticking around and listening to the whole show. So
yeah, thank you guys so much. And for anybody that's watching later, thank you for coming, and thank you for, taking the time to listen. And even if you don't agree with, certain positions, like just having the ears to listen to different opinions and listen to things that you really wouldn't, run into. It's always good to hear other opinions, even if you don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
So we appreciate that. And thank you so much. And I hope to see everybody again. So we're going to end it there. Thank you guys so much.
Have a good night, everybody, and God bless.